5 West African countries are joining forces to prepare unified response to floods and related disasters. Now, under the new response plan, Ghana's National Disaster Management Organization and its counterparts in the Ivory Coast, Nigeria and Burkina Faso are all teaming up with scientists and other experts to share weather and flood data in order to help minimize the impact of flooding as they are experienced in their respective countries. Nicholas Eko-Yamwa has more in the following report read to you.
West Africa's seasonal rains result in flooding, destroying property, crops, and even killing many. Whilst human activity has been blamed in many instances, the United Nations also attributes a big part of the problem to climate change, increasing urbanization, and population growth, which it says will further exacerbate the impact of floods in the future.
All about gathering enough data to prepare a decision support system to help stakeholders properly manage flood disasters when they do occur. So the intention is to be able to help our disaster management organizations like NADMO and then other organizations that collect flood-related data to be able to prepare in advance. So we should be able to predict floods before they do occur. So if you have sufficient data to be able to develop such a model, you are in a better shape to be able to advise stakeholders like governments to put structures in place to contain floods when they do occur.
Scores of people died and many others were displaced 5 years ago when floods and fire swept through the Kwame Nkrumah Circle in Accra and caused irreparable damage to several property and businesses. Such disasters, though of varied proportions, have become permanent in some West African states, prompting a coordinated effort to address the problem. Meteorological and disaster management experts from the 5 countries have been meeting in Ghana to try and find a solution to the perennial flooding affecting them.
It's about gutters and everything. You see, you have to know the quantum of water that you are expecting so that you can make decisions on how wide your gutters are supposed to be, how you plan your cities, how you plan your settlements. So all these are going to play into such decision-making processes.
The 5 countries intend to set the new plan rolling from next year, subject to the successful coalition of data.
Well, we're taking a break. When we come back, we'll bring you more. And we have to do the newspapers. I have joining me Gifty and Apia, and she's just streaming, looking beautiful this morning. Oh, Gifty, I'd say.
Roland, how are you?
Yeah, and Gifty and Apia is the head of our security desk. And it's important that we put matters into perspective because a lot has been happening in Mali. And Gifty, we've been looking at this over the last 12 hours, I have to believe, or if not 24 hours exactly.
I mean, it started, this is how it usually starts, as you already know. I don't know if you're asking for, what you're asking for is an update based on my monitoring of what's the international media space is reporting. As it stands now, the parliament has been dissolved in Mali. The president, has resigned himself. We know that the army had him, the military personnel that led this mutiny that essentially led into a coup were holding him and some other officials, including his son. And we know at this point that he's been, he's announced that he's stepping down, which you could give it all kinds of analysis. But we know that as it stands now, there are calls from several groups, including the United Nations, the ECOWAS, the AU, of course, the former colonialists of Mali, who, of course, don't leave after the didn't leave after the colonialism. I'm talking about France. They've all called for the immediate release of the leaders who were taken by the military. Right now, the country does not have a leader. We know that for sure. We're yet to see what those who led this coup would do, whether they're going to appoint civil leaders, whether they're going to hold themselves. I think they've been addressing the press as well. So there's a lot to talk about. There's actually a lot to chew on as far as what's happening in Mali is concerned. Very sad one. But coups don't just happen in a day, Roland. Coups kind of build up. And if you're talking about Mali and like most of the countries within the Sahel region, we know what the terrorists are also doing. They're taking advantage of a lot of loopholes, a lot of social problems, which is what typically they do. And all you need is a trigger, a very tiny little trigger. And what we also, what I'm gathering from what international media organizations are reporting at this point, because we're not in Bamako, is that there has been an issue over pay, salary. There has also been an issue over the way that the military feels that the country has generally dealt with security. So there is an issue of deteriorating security there as well. There are issues of corruption. There are issues of economic mismanagement. You can't put this past any African government. And I think that we're seeing the result of something that has been building up over the time, and terrorists who are always standing by to take advantage of the situation. In fact, the northern part of Mali has been almost ungovernable. It's been taken over by Tuareg rebels. We know that for sure. You can say that about Burkina Faso. You can say that about other countries as well. So, Roland, this is where we are. Hopefully along the line, we'll be able to have more conversation about what is happening. But coups don't happen in a day. It usually comes on the back of pre-existing security lapses, pre-existing security problems, pre-existing social inequalities or inequities. And of course, corruption can't be ruled out. Economic mismanagement, we're seeing that as well here as cited as a problem in Mali. And you see the sort of public support that the military, when they take over in some of these cases, they get. Because, President Keita himself there have been calls for him to step down. He's just been president since 2013, but there have been calls for him to step down following all these issues that have raised corruption, economic mismanagement, and that hasn't happened. So as soon as this happened, I was watching Al Jazeera, and you saw the number of people that, and there have been protests over the period. There have already been protests. So it's sort of just like when you light a match and you already have petrol on the floor. So you just kind of caught up and we've seen this in African, we've seen it here in Ghana. When coups happen, people jump on the street and they support them. Now, what happens to the country from then on is where the big conversation is. It is sad that in the 21st century, we are looking at coups. You would have thought that we have moved away from there. But yeah, this is the stark reality that we're facing. I'm looking forward to see how the UN, we understand that there's supposed to be a Security Council meeting, a UN Security Council meeting today. So we wait to see what that meeting brings, what the outcome of that particular meeting will be. I want to hear what the AU is doing apart from calling for the immediate release of the former president. Mind you, France has already been in Mali. They've been trying to help with the fight against the Tuareg rebels and other jihadist groups that are operating in the Sahel region already. So I don't know how it was possible, for the military to just bump in and arrest or, take in the president and the prime minister. I don't know how that happened, how they were able to get also other heads or other heads of institutions or other heads of ministries in that country. I don't know, perhaps there were security lapses that were already overlooked and they were able to take advantage of this because you had France right there in the country at this point. So we're waiting to see what the ECOWAS says, what the AU says, apart from calling for the release of these leaders and what the Security Council brings later in the day. And there's going to be a lot of news about Mali today, obviously. And we'll see also how the terrorist groups that have taken advantage of the situation also, behave as we go along. Roland.
Yeah, and since that unrest with the invasion of the Tuareg rebels in 2012, we do know that in 2018, following the election, there were a number of incidents. And if you read recent literature, it said that there were concerns about some of the electoral results. They had been taken to court, but the suspicion was that they were manipulated at the courts. And as a result of that, these tensions have been brewing, just to complement what you said. But let's go to the international front and also get to know what really the international media is also reporting based on as a follow-up from what Gov't has been telling us, because you get onto the mainstreams here, and this is the BBC. Says soldier sees Mali President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita. And as again enumerated by Gov't and Apia, the head of our security desk, the action by the military seems to have the overwhelming support, if not the majority of Malians, especially in the capital, Bamako. Yeah, you can see the crowds in there jubilating. It's a semblance of a situation again, Gov't paint to be the same scenario that have accompanied coups, not only to this day, but also even decades past, even in Ghana. She again reiterated, and I think we have to put that into perspective. Now, you go to Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera says Mali's Keita resigns as president after military mutiny. And we have to say that it's not it's almost like a bloodless mutiny. So even though we're told that there have been some forced kidnappings, etc., before this concession by the president, but we've had a number of the world international or the world
or the one. So it has essentially moved from mutiny to a coup now, because it started as a mutiny where you have this thing happening within the military or in the military camp, but it's quickly moved from there. Once they had the president and the prime minister, it moved from there to a coup. Now that the president has been forced to resign.
Concede and say I'm resigning, yeah. And so the Al Jazeera network has been reporting widely on this as well, and they even, you go to their opinion page, they also try to trace what may have resulted in the current state as it is. But we've had condemnations from the African Union, ECOWAS, the UN also condemning this as well. They before now demanded for his release, but the crisis had started, and we know that this is where we are currently. Let's go to the British tabloid.
Another quick intervention, Roland. We also know that I think one of the actions taken by ECOWAS and the AU was to block, close the borders to Mali, close the Malian borders to, as much as possible, try and avoid or prevent cash inflows, to try also prevent, movement of arms, which is usually what happens in some of these cases. So you have all kinds of people who are ready to just take advantage of the situation. I think it's a good thing that they've been able to close the borders. But once again, you know that most of our borders are artificial. Most of our borders, if we want to take Ghana as an example, you can have your kitchen in Ghana and have your bathroom in Togo. So most of our borders are artificial, so you can still have people seeping through. But once it is there's an official closure of the borders, I think it's a good thing. But obviously, there will still be areas where people can get into the country anyhow. But that's at least a good intervention, I would say.
All right. So we also do know that their former colony, France, has a military presence there. The U.S. also has a great military reconnaissance missions that they tend to undertake. Even we as a country also have a number of our troops as part of the whole intervention of the UN also in there. But it's also for good reason. The Al-Qaeda linked and ISIL linked groups also have been operating within the Sahel region, as already indicated. But Gov't, let's talk about the spillover effect. What does it mean for, again, increasing the instability within the sub-region?
Well, the instability within the sub-region is sad. Sometimes I think we've even become a bit fatigued about it. Look at what's happening in Nigeria. Nigeria is a big country. It's got its acts together, but it still has a problem of Boko Haram threatening the peace. There are still issues of stories of kidnapping. There are still stories of all kinds of security problems. You can talk about Burkina Faso. Part of Burkina Faso is totally ungovernable. I mean, the northern part of Burkina Faso. So usually you'd have countries who are, they are pre-existing conflicts, okay? And unfortunately for these countries, they have jihadists operating there who are taking advantage of this. And one of the things that jihadists do, or one of the things that these rebel groups do, is that they'll have a way of providing some sort of hope for your young people. Now, mind you, Mali has a huge youthful population. They'll take advantage of the unemployment, for example, of the youth and begin to put in social intervention. So they can have a place where they are governing or where they have roots. So it's, say, in the northern part of Burkina Faso, where you have a lot of these people providing basic necessities, for example, for the society. Now they'll look at their lives and they feel like government has not provided this for us. So if these people are providing it for us, besides they have arms, let's succumb. So it's the spillover is just. I can't imagine. I don't pretend to be an expert on these and to have all of the answers, but I think it's common sense that groups that are rebel groups are just going to take advantage of the situation. It's good, like I said, that they have closed the borders, but there certainly will be a way for them to go through. I think that there has to be an increase in security. There has to be an increase in security presence at the borders now that they have been closed, to make sure that there aren't an inflows of arms, there aren't inflows of finances that support these coups. And I'm hoping that there will be a quick reinstatement of order in the country. But otherwise, we know Niger has its own problems. We know it's just terrible. It's like a sleeping lion waiting to be awakened. And how we treat it quickly within these few hours will go a long way to determine what the outcomes that you're asking about, Roland, from my perspective, will be.
Right. Well, we know that we'll do further analysis right here on the show. We'll try as much as possible and get comprehensive updates from those who teach international relations, the political scientists and the analysts on this when we're having the discussions. But Gifty, we have at least some 8 minutes. Let's quickly see what we can do with the newspapers we have. You have the Finder, the Daily Guide, I believe, and then the Statesman. Please quickly just go through for us.
Okay, let me see what I can do with this. I'm going to start with the Statesman newspaper. The Daily Statesman banner headline: $289 million building 4 interchanges. That story is on page 2 of the Statesman newspaper. And beneath that, you have a very beautiful picture of an interchange. And then, but $260 million built only one under Mahama. Obviously, you'd expect that the government would just go ahead and state what it has done, but it's good to do some analysis, some comparison, which they're doing quite brilliantly here. Then beneath that story, there's a picture of Martin Amidu and Ms. Ahoy. Martin Amidu fires Ahoy Nana over irredeemable lies in book against Rawling. That story is also on page 2 of the newspaper. On top of the banner headline, Ekufuado, my government constructs visible roads. The story is on page 2. All right, there's some people construct invisible roads, exactly what the story seeks to suggest. So I think that's what I have for the front page for the Statesman newspaper. I also have the Daily Guide. Daily Guide says Bawumia flays Mahama, 1 NDC interchange, $260 million, 4 NPP cost $289 million. So the analysis is done also very brilliantly here on the Daily Guide newspaper, comparing how much it costs to build roads in under Mahama administration and under the Ekufuado administration. You can get yourself a copy of the newspaper. Beneath that story, you have Roman father rallies 4 more for Nana Okay. Religion meeting politics there for you. And Amidu exposes Ahoy lies. Then leave me alone. Tracy Boachi screams at Ken. Tracy Boachi seems to be trending a whole lot these days. And child rights lords Nana's free JHS meals. Anything to add on to the political conversation. Right, so the Daily Guide newspaper, I think this must be the back page. Coronavirus strikes Liverpool, Marseille, and 2 teams play naked in protest against cash. Oh, that's an interesting story that Roland will be very interested in. 2 teams playing naked. Maybe you can read the first paragraph.
It's not something I'm interested in, but it will be a good thing to watch.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, fan names baby girl after Ozil. And Boachi is Ghana's strongest. Okay. See what else I have on the... Okay. I think that's about all that I have for the Daily Guide. Let's see. Final newspaper. I'm going to wrap up with the final newspaper, Roland, if you'll just indulge me for a while. Final newspaper, banner headline, 17,334 NPP projects. Stories are on pages 8 and page 9. 8,746 completed, 8,588 ongoing. Dr. Bawumia unveils project delivery tracker website. Comes the picture of himself, his wife, Samira Bawumia. And keep to the roadmap against political vigilantism. Professor Asante is saying that another very important story, and we joke with some of these stories sometimes, I think, but if you look at what is happening in Mali, you can't take away the politics from the security issues. They're always intertwined. So when it starts, showing its face gradually, rearing its head, that's when you have to stamp it. I hope we're able to do that and do it well. Other stories there, we are completing inherited projects. That's Dr. Bawumia on page 4 of the Finder newspaper. And sex offenders register in the offing, Dofsu boss. Okay, we want to see it already, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So we know who are the sex offenders. We can profile them. And nine new COVID-19 deaths pushes toll to 248 with 1,949 active cases, or 1,000. Obviously, we have reduced the rate at which we were testing. We know that for sure. And so the experts have said that anytime we're quoting these numbers, it's good to indicate the context. We're not testing enough. We also change the case definition a little bit. So yeah, fewer cases there, but people are still dying. So we need to take care of ourselves. Okay, so some of the stories on the pages. UTAC commends government for granting Coltech autonomy. Not sure what that story is about. And GCB improves on power, 100 banks on social media. Keep to the roadmap against political vigilantism. I think, Roland, the final bit of my submission is on the back page of the Finder newspaper, where it has pictures, 17,334 NPP projects. You want to take your time, read that story if you're interested in measuring government's output so far as we near the elections. Roland, that'll be it for me for here.
Well, let me just quickly go through. I have the ones left. The Ghanaian Times has on the front page. We'll deal with voter registration offences soon. We'll bring that to you as well right here on Joy News. Police also assure nation. Up there, we do have GPHA retired engineer defrauded the company or the corporation of some 1.4 million Ghana cedis, and we know that this case is in court. It's been adjourned to August 31. Okay, and it's the case of Mohammed Aminu Bonkano. Okay, and we also do have President cuts sword for the construction of 200 million kilometer road in Lambele. At the government town hall meeting, the vice president calls on Ghanaians to give President Kufuor overwhelming endorsement at the December post to continue his good work done so far. On the back page, it's about Ashanti region recording more road accident fatalities than other regions, and Temaway Bridge is finding its way here because it's been inaugurated. Front page of the Daily Dispatch newspaper, Haruna Artest's new book, Rollins is Too Important in Ghana's Politics to be Written Off. and he's written the book and titled it Ahirine Pankasa, Standing with JDM, Abdul Rahman Haruna Atta. All right.
Someone said this is the year of books.
Yeah, 2020, right? After Corona, we've been seeing Amazon-like publications so far. We've been good.
Mine is coming soon.
Yeah, we need your life story because you're a myth, very mythical figure. There's 6. Say you nimo, you the 6 constituencies that recorded cases of violence during the 2020 voter registration, and this is very indicative because then it points to where we're going currently. We do have the custodian. I would do Mahama. Good morning to you. You're the managing editor, and the front page is about Martin Amidu berating Nana Jane over working with Rawlings' book, and we know that the NDC vice presidential running mate. I think running mate is more appropriate because they are usually not on the ballot paper. She wrote the foreword for the Professor Ahoy book. So.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
I've been trying to track down one of the books for myself.
Yeah. I've been wondering what's the political rationale for publishing this at this time, but you Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's a deliberate.
Well, we love the drama, so we'll go along with it. Daily Graphic, though, has on the front page Elizabeth Ohene returning to Graphic as guest editor, but she's also been on the BBC as they mark the years that they've been focused on Africa, and great work also just trying to cover the continent. And she's been writing some good articles in there as well. You go to their site, you read some nice one. Advertisers UN partner to celebrate humanitarian workers. COVID-19 spurs growth in mobile money, and our project costs less. Provide value for money. Dr. Bawumia. It's a story found by Chris Nono for the Daily Graphic. It's at the town hall meeting. The vice president was at his Voce for us best. Booming yesterday evening. All right, Gifty. We don't have time for your pick. I think you've chewed on the Malian issue enough, but I can give you 1 minute. Let me give you 1 minute. So 60 seconds. Please start.
Oh, like seriously, what do you give me? You give someone like me 60 seconds. I don't know what else you want me to say. But
you spent 30 seconds, Gifty. Go ahead.
Well, I don't have any pick. I just say that I'll be interested to see how this Martin Amidu and Ahoy, story ends eventually. But I think for most of the newspapers, a big story has been what the NPP said it has done in government. I think the NPP is doing something that the NDC was accused of not doing a lot in 2016. People said that, in fact, people within the NDC said that the NDC was not able to communicate its achievements very well, despite the green book or whatever, yellow book, whatever there was. I think that the NPP has been very deliberate in putting out what they have done. But I think whilst they are at it, they also have the risk of making people feel like, really, that really feeling like you have done this, you have done that. Is it enough for me? Am I feeling it, as a voter? Am I feeling it in my pocket as a voter? Am I feeling it in my life, the things you're touting? So I think that there should be a little bit of a balance there whilst you're touting what you believe you have done, because your predecessor, people have said, lost the election, not projecting what they have done. You also want to make sure that people are actually feeling the change that they voted for, that people are actually living the change that they voted for. And it's not just about you showing us the infrastructure. It's also about making us see that the policy interventions that we put in, and sometimes it's just good to admit your mistakes. If you made a mistake and you think that something didn't work here, you think that you could not achieve something you wanted to achieve, just be honest with people. And the discerning voter will certainly like you for that, maybe give you his or her vote.
Yeah.
So you're giving me 60 seconds, you've restricted me, so I've tried.
Yeah, I know, right? You took 3 minutes, but Charlie Gifty, I forgive you. You're lovely always.
Roland, have a great day. I miss you.
Oh, I did too. I'll look forward to it. I know that you don't think of the work, but don't worry. When you are getting closer to your restart you will think of the work. But in the meantime, we have to go for a break. Gov't and Wapia, great work as always, helping us do some great analysis and reviews in the segment. But next, we have to bring you the latest sports headlines with Benedict Owusu right here on the show.
Well, it was a good night for Paris Saint-Germain fans. For the very first time in so many years, they've been able to make the UEFA Champions League final. We'll show you highlights of how it all happened. And also tonight, there's another semi-final. Bayern Munich can they also get to the finals and play Paris Saint-Germain? Time will tell as they come up against French side Olympique Lyon. But we have to start here on the local scene, and the Ghana FA has taken steps to ensure the spread of the coronavirus is curtailed at the camps of the Black Princesses and Maidens. Now, yesterday, it was confirmed 7 players had contracted the virus after testing. Now, the 7 have since been isolated and are receiving treatment with their contact tracers also in quarantine. There is more in the following report.
About 80 footballers and technical team members were tested for COVID-19 following the president's decision to ease restrictions for the 2 female national teams, the Black Princesses and Maidens, to assemble for their international assignments. The testing was a requirement as one of the protocol measures to avoid the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Following the test, the team moved to camp in Cape Coast, awaiting their result. Communications Director of the Ghana Football Association, Henry Asante Chum, speaking to Joy Sports, revealed some members of the team have tested positive for the COVID.
On Friday, the teams assembled in Cape Coast, and now because it has become mandatory for the players and the staff to undergo coronavirus test, all of them went through that particular test. 31 Black Princesses players and then 30 Black Maidens players, and then their officials. You know, we had over 80 players undergoing the test, over 80 people undergoing the test. So the technical team took a decision not to train until the results come out. Okay. Unfortunately, the results that came out had some concerns as regards some of the players testing positive for the virus. Yes, I can confirm that 4 of the Maidens players and 3 players of the Black Princesses tested positive for the virus. Fortunately, because we worked with the Ghana Health Service and the COVID-19 task force, immediately when the results came out, the 7 players were actually quarantined.
Despite the number of players tested positive, the GFA has decided that the team will continue preparations. However, those tested positive have been isolated as well as their contact.
The discussions we have had with the technical team this morning, they want to give themselves at most 2 weeks. Those who tested positive would hopefully, go through another test in a fortnight. Okay. Then we will know exactly what to do. And those who were in contact with them as well would be in isolation for about 1 week. Then we'll run another test and know what to do. So for now, nothing will change in terms of personnel, at least for the next 1 or 2 weeks. If after the second week of training, these players are still not in the position to return to the team, then they will fall on other players.
The Princesses have their game currently on hold due to a communique from CAF announcing that member countries have not eased restrictions on travels.
So that was Haruna Mubarak's reports. Now, the Ghana FA has made changes to the date and venue of its upcoming Ordinary Congress. Now, Muftau Nabila has the details in the following reports.
Just as it has become the new normal holding conferences electronically due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the GFA leadership had found it prudent to engage its members through the medium come August 27, 2020. The GFA looked to be going ahead with the decision for the Congress format despite strong opposition for it to be held in person as usual until Ghana President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's latest update on COVID-19 restrictions last Sunday. In a letter signed by the Secretary General Prosper Harrison Addo communicating a new date and venue, the GFA admitted the departure from the earlier announced virtual conference has been due to the lifting of restrictions by the President. portion of the letter read, and I quote, "Kindly be informed that pursuant to Article 31(2) of the GFA Statutes 2019, the Executive Council has fixed Tuesday, September 1, 2020 at 9:00 a.m. in the forenoon as the date and time for the 26th Ordinary Congress, and the GFA Technical Center, Ghana Soccer Center of Excellence, Pram, as the venue for the Congress. September 1 also happens to be the date the Court of Arbitration for Sport has communicated to parties in relation to the disqualification of Wilfred Osei-Kweku from contesting the 2019 GFA presidential elections as the date they will be awarding its decision.
Again, we have to tell you that we'll have some conversation with some great international relations analysts, some political scientists about the Malian situation. Already, we do know that the president has decided to resign and leave office, but it's also because it was at the behest, very forcefully by the military, putting the gun literally just behind his neck to make sure that he took that decision. This widely has been condemned by the UN, the AU, ECOWAS, and other international bodies. But we also would treat as urgent the matter of the vice president in his latest town hall meeting, telling us about the massive infrastructural project undertaken by the MPP-led administration with Nana Akufo-Addo at the helm of affairs, and how that also compares with John Dramani Mahama's NDC over whether a 4-year or an 8-year period. We'll do all that as we analyze the issues critically right here. But in the meantime, because it's a Wednesday, always brought to you by EcoBank, we have AM Biz, and on AM Business this morning, ever thought of the possibility of bringing in goods from neighboring Nigeria, Ethiopia, or South Africa without paying import duty? This and more are the packages the Continental Free Trade Agreement area present to you. Now, in this edition of AM Business, Charles Aite is taking us through the prospect and fears of the Free Trade Agreement.
Africa is open for business. The very words of President Akufo-Addo as he handed over the office complex of the Africa Continental Free Trade Secretariat to the AU Commission.
The coming into being of the African Continental Free Trade Area is one of the most important decisions taken by the AU. When you consider the fact the trade between African countries remains low, currently standing at some 16% of our combined GDP, compared to other parts of the world, like the European Union 75%, it is obvious that these very low levels of intra-regional trade constitute one of the defining characteristics of our continuing poverty. They hinder our prospects of bringing prosperity to our peoples. A large part of the growth and prosperity that we seek on the continent will come from us trading more amongst ourselves.
This iconic moment is a product of the vote of confidence in Ghana to host the secretariat of what is expected to be the world's largest single market zone. With $3 trillion in annual GDP, this never came at a better time.
Indeed, as part of the hosting agreement, Ghana was requested by the Assembly to work with the AU Commission to ensure an expeditious and efficient process of establishing a permanent secretariat for the AfCFTA in Accra. Ghana has fully discharged all her obligations and commitments agreed with the AU Commission. And we are today handing over a fully furnished and befitting office space in a secured and easily accessible location within the business center of Accra.
He is the man to steer the affairs of the Continental Free Trade Agreement area. Wamkele Mene has a task ahead of him to forge intra-African trade from the woeful 13% to a promising 33% or more.
We will mobilize multilateral development finance institutions in Africa in order to ensure that we mobilize resources for targeted soft infrastructure for the facilitation of our trade. whether it is in the form of one border posts, facilitation of ease of transit of goods, all of those infrastructure-related activities, we will support and complement the efforts at sub-regional and at national level. It's very important that we do that. In terms of the ratifications, there are 26 countries that have not yet ratified. As you are aware, ratification is a national process. It is determined by a country's national laws or a constitution. And so we have to, whilst we are conscious of the importance of rapidly moving towards ratification, at the same time we have to balance that with the need to respect national processes.
Former UK Cabinet Minister Paul Yeboahten says the success of the Continental Free Trade Agreement area will be based on reforms and strategies that will make the continent attractive to investors.
Yes, the pandemic is a crisis. The world is in recession. Africa will not be and is not immune from either the pandemic or the global recession. But a crisis is both a challenge and an opportunity. And the pandemic in its way creates a unique opportunity, not least for small and medium-sized enterprises. So we have to make sure that there is startup capital for them, that there's a transparent and reliable regulatory environment that facilitates entrepreneurship and encourages investors.
Even as the Continental Free Trade Agreement opens up for the free movement of goods and services, the emergence of a burgeoning entrepreneurial space questions Africa's preparedness to support SMEs to expand to meet global competition. Already, they are concerned over the high cost of lending. Ebenezer Onyegu is the Managing Director and CEO at Zenith Bank PLC.
The issue of access to credits is being addressed. If the moment we have the African Continental Free Trade Zone, I expect them to draw up a framework that should guide various countries on the institutional support and framework required to give flesh and life to their initiatives. And they also need institutional support and framework from the different countries. We need to have some reforms that will support the initiative they will come up with. Then, of course, they need the support of the private sector and the public sector altogether. So we need to see it as a completely African project. We need to see it as a project that will help us rejuvenate the African enterprise, the way we conduct ourselves, and let's achieve economies of scale.
But there remains a challenge. Programs Manager of the Third World Network Africa, Sylvester Baguro, fears the Africa Single Market Initiative may not have a smooth takeoff as expected. He worries over the rules of origin not well streamlined.
Even look at what they call the protocols on goods. That means you are trading goods across Africa. We have what we call the rules of origin. That is the passport of the product. What product can actually qualify as a Ghanaian or African product is one. Number two, how the selection is done in terms of the goods. And so I want to explain this so that it will be clear. First of all, in terms of the selection of the products, that is where the president talked about the agriculture and all that. We have 90%, 70%, and 3%. And let me explain. The 90% means that all products that are coming from the rest of Africa who are party to the agreement will enter duty-free, quota-free. It means that we are not going to charge the duties on them when they come to the port. They just come in like that. They will be treated as Ghanaian products. So that must be clear. Secondly, we also have an agreement, we have our 7% that they are in the wisdom of the technical people that there's a need to protect these sectors. And so they are going to open up, but then it will take much more time. And that is one of the dimensions. And thirdly, there's what they call the 3%. For that one, they are not going to be excluded. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that this is a very good, we have gotten the secretary, it is very good, but how it will benefit the many Ghanaians and Africans across the country will depend on how the rules are defined also depend on how the solution is done.
Being at the forefront of the battle against the influx of foreigners in Ghana's retail space, the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obin, has called for trading communities under the AfCFTA program to be well-oriented on the pact so as to prevent mistakes of the past. I sat with him to assess the opportunities and challenges ahead.
We should be mindful that with the coming of the Continental Free Trade Area, ECOWAS is a subset of the Continental Free Trade, so it's virtually null and void. But we should be able to manage any contradiction that these sub-regional blocks, whatever rules and engagement they have, does not come to contradict the Continental Free Trade Area. But for us, once we have the Continental Free Trade Area, it should be the overall thing, and then this thing should be the things of the past. If we are thinking about Africa, we think about Africa. And so these mistakes in the past should be a thing of the past.
The total trade from Africa to the rest of the world averaged $760 billion in current prices in the period of 2015 and 2017, compared with $481 billion from Oceania, $4,109 billion from Europe, and over $5,000 billion from America, with $6,000 billion from Asia.
The most developed regions of the world are, incidentally, the regions also with the highest level of market integration. Regrettably, Africa still remains the least integrated region in the world. Less than 15% of Africa's total trade occurs within the region. The paradox of Africa being the richest continent and yet the poorest could be partly attributed to this unfortunate situation. Distinguished invited guests, the successful implementation of the AfCFTA will bring many benefits to our continent. First, it will increase the level of intra-African trade with the harmonization and coordination of trade within the continent. It is estimated that intra-African trade would increase by as much as $35 billion or by 52% per annum.
The share of export from Africa to the rest of the world ranged from 80% to 90% between 2000 and 2018. This is big for Africa, unprecedented in the continent's trade history. I'm Charles Aite for Joy Business.
Deepening it further is Dr. Nansata Yakubu. She is a political scientist in her own right, so great lecturer, the advocate as well for a lot of policy implementation, gender balance, and then also her colleague who practices his profession as a senior political science lecturer with the department at the University of Ghana, Dr. Ali Dusaid, also helping us. Look, this will help us transition into the bigger conversation about the Vice President of the Republic with the town hall meeting that was also convened, and all the things that we talked about, that the Vice President says was 17,000. Or is it 1,700 projects had been undertaken so far? So we'll see how it goes. But let me start with you by welcoming you, Dr. Nansata Yakubu. Hello, can you hear me?
Good morning, Roland. I can hear you.
Yeah, great one day. Dr. Ali Dusaid, can you hear me as well? Dr. Saidu? Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm mute. Okay.
Good morning, Roland. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, great. I'll start with my intelligent lecturer there, female, because, you know, these days we're advocating more female participation in all spheres of our society. Again, let me clarify. The government says it has initiated 17,000, Got it right first time, wrong the second time. 17,334 infrastructural projects since its assumption of office in 2017. Now, I would want you to have some brief comments made on, one, how important are, let's say, town hall meetings, such venues for communicating the achievements or the efforts by way of policy interventions of government in this era? Let me start with you, Dr. Nansata Yakubu.
Yeah, town hall meetings are effective political communication tools. You know, it helps you to be able to align what you have set out to achieve in a very coherent manner, to try to remain consistent and to be able to establish a certain credibility about issues that might be disputed in the public domain or indeed by your political opponents. So it's like a one tool that you can employ to be able to communicate effectively. It has its own advantages and what we would call disadvantages. On the advantages, you can try to get the media. You can leverage on media participation to be able to reach a wider audience. And indeed, in a time like this, when getting on the road might be difficult, especially if you are in government, then it means that it's an effective tool that you can utilize. The media can help. You might be able to mainstream in different languages because the issues get taken, and translated, and everybody can get to hear it. However, there are also spaces that might be close to you, because remember, it's not everybody who is invested in watching TV or even listening to radio. So there are limits, to what you can do. I just have to also know that, yes, I was just saying that at the same time, it sometimes goes to just validate what your base would want, as in those in your party are the people you speak to more, maybe than those who are already not really invested in any political party. Because as for your opponents, they will definitely not, be invested, into believing what you are presenting. But then your base, it goes to validate and maybe cement some of their initial doubts or clarify the position of the party in a bigger way. So it's a political comms tool that you can use to achieve a lot. Yeah.
Now, Dr. Saidu, I see that particularly until now, well, many people did not know that the projects that have been undertaken by the government numbered 17,304. Now, if you juxtapose that with the period of the NDC administration, by the close of 2016, because after they lost, the communication was that they didn't really articulate or communicate directly what the projects were, even though they could be seen. In this instance, we don't see more physical projects, even though prior to now, we hadn't seen more physical projects until recently. And now we're being told these are the numbers. So my question directly is, which one is good? You seeing the projects or you being told that these are the projects?
Okay, thank you so much, Roland. I think you need both in most instances. One, you see the town hall meetings, I just wanted to add to my senior colleague's submission. You see, they can serve two major purposes. It is a good governance tool, a tool for enhancing good governance by deepening transparency and accountability, but it is also a tool for political communication. In the first instance, the element of transparency comes in when government is able to tell people what they have done and then provide an opportunity for people to verify what they have said by creating a link so that people can actually go and verify what they have said and contest it. But it also serves as a little bit of, and then also sometimes the cost. The government is able to tell you how much money is involved and whether there's cost-benefit analysis prior to embarking the project and whether state resources have been saved in that regard. So when you become more transparent, it deepens the the ability of the people to hold you to account, so that you'll be able to interrogate the figures and then the projects that you have put there and see whether they actually work very well. So it's a very good mechanism for deepening good governance, but it is also a political communication tool. There is a tendency that political parties can use this forum to propagate a specific political agenda aimed at getting the electorate to vote for them or validate their achievement in government. If you are talking about infrastructure, I understand that we have hard infrastructure, but also have soft infrastructure. The soft infrastructure usually are not visible. They can usually be investment in maybe telecommunication equipment, it could be investment in internet data, it could be investment in any other things, many things that can enhance the livelihood of the people. But when we are talking about hard infrastructure, these are things that are visible to the ordinary eye of the person. And when politicians tell you that I have been able to do this, I have been able to do that, then you, the local person who live in that community, is not able to see those things. Or maybe you have seen them, but the state at which it was told that it has advanced to, it's not like that. Then you can match your local knowledge and experience about that project to what is being delivered at the national level. But it also may occur in several typologies, whether you are connecting at the local level. So we have micro level infrastructural development that are tailored to meet the day-to-day basic needs of the people, including water, including sanitation, including health facilities, including toilets and all those things that connect directly to the personal livelihoods and needs of the people at the grassroots level. But we also have macro level infrastructure that are usually at the national level, that enhance in connecting people, movement of people, that leads to production and general the development of the economy. So when about 17,000 plus projects are set to have been like this particular, not too early. No, this was done last night. It's still too early for people to be able to verify whether these projects actually have been executed or they are ongoing. One, whether they actually exist, but two, whether the state at which the government say it existed is actually the case. So I still think we need a little bit of time to digest, to interrogate, and to unpack these huge numbers that has been thrown to us last night. Then based on that, there will be more open up space for contestation. But this is not the first time we've had this. You see, the NDC has also came out and talked about projects that has been done, and they also created a link. The MPP did similar in the past. And we also know civil society bodies like Imani Ghana have also done a ranking of this government in terms of achievement of its campaign promises and has scored them at the level of infrastructure. And what I think it was around, was it 46.something% achievement broadly in infrastructure, including both soft, hard, and then also micro and macro level kind of infrastructure. So I still think it is too early since this particular town hall meeting was delivered for us to actually accept all the things that was said by the vice president last night. We still have to interrogate, unpack, and verify them. And at the end of the day, we should be able to make a close assessment to the reality, what was told to us last night.
Now, there is a considerable aspect of what has been said that, in the opinion of many, means that the rest of the electioneering period is going to be issue-based. Do you also get the same inclination, Dr. Yakubu?
Rightly so, Roland. I think if you know all our earlier conversations, we've been calling on political parties to keep you to the issues, because I think that is what Ghanaians are looking for, and then we can move away from the basis for insults and all that. But you know, the politicians always capitalize on a lot of issues that is in the public domain. And you have to also realize that campaigning is at different levels. So whilst the base might be interested in some of these issues where you would have insults going to and fro, at the middle level and at a high level, they need to then concentrate on the issues, because that is where you are going to be able to articulate your message and a manifesto. if indeed you are looking for election to be re-elected or to be elected again, how do we say, to become the new president or to be retained as the president, as the case may be for the two political parties. So we are saying that in keeping with issues, we need to see these kinds of debate. Now, to stay on the issue of whether there's a soft or hard infrastructure and how we can interrogate the number of projects, I think to a large extent, we have to leave the barometer for measuring these records to the electorate, because in everybody's constituency, in a district, in a region, we have seen, projects that have been communicated as either in motion, being completed, or near completion, and stuff like that. So we would have to know that it will be the base that will be able to verify, this. If you sit in Accra and then you listen in on a conference of this sort, sometimes it's very difficult to start unpacking. But if indeed the message gets out there, everybody in their community can say that, look, I believe this or I don't believe this. So indeed, in the next couple of days, we will start seeing a comeback on these issues, either to validate, to dissent, to protest, to whatever. And then it will be an opportunity for us to be able, for those of us who are doing political watches and polling and all that, to be able to assess to what extent the numbers that have been put out there. However, I wanted to talk about the effectiveness, itself of putting out these kind of numbers. Unfortunately for us, we have, in a way, introduced a council culture on what people have achieved into our body politics. And I'm sure Dr. Alidu will tell. In 2016, the NDC even had a whole book, that was called the Green Book. They ran adverts on it, and it was said to be Photoshop. They come out and there were these very humorous adverts about whether it's Photoshop, whether it's not Photoshop, things like that. And for some reason, perception was a political marketing tool that was used to cancel it. We had a cancel culture of people saying, we don't eat infrastructure, we don't eat roads, we don't eat. So that in itself was a precedent that has not helped us, in being open to these kind of conversations. So for some reason, there's a very apathetic level actually of people being interested in this kind of debates. Because if you come, like Roland, you rightly said, you come and tell us, if we as the electorate and as citizens, it's not an opportunity for us to be able to ask, questions for our area. We kind of typically are used to the town hall meetings where somebody comes there with his goat, right? You remember President Foster, somebody came with a goat to come and ask for things for to go and rear goats and all that. We had these very interesting. So at that low level of town hall meeting, issues that are critical to people, are what are discussed. At this particular town hall meeting, as we say, it's a political comes to tell us this is what we have done and leave it there, and then we now go out and do it. So I said that once it gets to the basic, it gets to the constituencies and the districts and all that, that is where the opportunity to interrogate. But at this level, the council culture that was established in 2016, a lot of people are already identifying, with that. And don't also forget that we have a very short electioneering period. It's August now. We are voting December 7th. So there are a lot of things that are already happening with the current trends of issues. And sometimes these very long opportunities to tell us things that we don't really believe goes back to the 3 C's issues, that we're talking about, the issues of consistency, the issue of coherence, and the issue of credibility. And for a lot of people, hard infrastructure is actually what gets to the core. I can tell you, if you hold a town hall meeting and you only dwell on system strengthening, for instance, there was one about ports, outlining the port issue. We are all still witnesses to the big fallout from the port issue. So you get a lot of people to become a bit, defensive. But most people actually, because they are used to hard infrastructure, that is why already you can see people, saying, oh, what was this? How was it given? And things like that. So hard infrastructure, I think, is the basis for which political comms hit hard. And then you can add the other ones to leverage. That is not to dismiss any kind of infrastructure. But I tell you, if you show people 10 buildings and then show them 50 systems and procedures in run up to an election, we are going to have them going along with the 10 buildings. So to what extent was this the right messaging to reach the target audience that Dr. Bawumia wanted to reach? To what extent was this an effective political comms? As Alidu said, we are watching and we are hoping that by Friday we will see, some of these issues coming up for more discussions.
Now, Dr. Saidu, 2016, there's this refrain, Akwaina Yebedi, is it infrastructure? It be infrastructure we go chop. Now, I know that it was part of the refrain. You see, sometimes you have to counter the political communication of the opponents with the other. But how do we then try to put the issues on the banner if that is now the focus? Let's say comparing who did what.
So if you go back to 2016, I think the NDC manifesto was their campaign was largely based on infrastructural development. And if you go back to the FES, Frederick Ebbe Foundation, right up there, I call it the infrastructure overhype. You see, they thought that they had done so much in infrastructure, unprecedented levels, that they don't even have to campaign. The people will see themselves and will actually endorse them and retain them in power. But people came out, the opposition party actually came out with the slogan that we do not eat infrastructure. So basically, elections have to do with addressing the prevailing socio-economic circumstances of the people at the time. We know that infrastructure can actually directly or indirectly impact on the lives and livelihoods of the people. To some extent, infrastructure development indirectly benefits the people in terms of job creation, in terms of improving their livelihoods, but do not directly put money into their pockets. So when you are going to look at the whole fact that a lot of infrastructure development has been done, then people tend to ask you, how does that improve my life as a person? So you have constructed roads. I don't have a car to drive, even though you may pick 1212 and the 1212 will use that same better road in a manner of time that is less than if you were going to drive in a road that's not good. But some people, they usually will ask themselves, if you have built roads and you have done A, B, C, D, my major concern is how to get my child's school fees settled. My major concern is how to afford healthcare. My major concern is getting employment. My major concern is this. So how does infrastructure development directly translates into solving the personal problems that I have? So if you are looking at it in terms of infrastructure, yes, it is good at the border level to do those things, to be able to strengthen the economy, to be able to create easiness in terms of how long people can go to work without being in traffic. That can enhance productivity because they wouldn't be tired, they won't spend so much time on traffic. It connects to enhancing and creating job opportunities at the local level. People can open up shops and then put containers on the road that is done to start. Those things are indirect. They have an indirect impact on the people. But people usually want to see the direct impact, like instituting innovative social intervention policies that directly puts money into their pockets to start businesses, that directly feeds them, that directly empower them, create that kind of knowledge gap that is in the system so that they'll be able to realize their potentials. So if you go back to 2016, Roland, I believe the level of infrastructure that the NDC put up there was enormous. But at the end of the day, the people rejected them. They voted against them. So you can replay what happened in 2016 to 2019, just 4 years back. And then people will start asking the same questions. So do we eat infrastructure? What role does infrastructure play directly in impacting on my life and my livelihood? It's a huge debate that will continue to play off. And depending on the side of power that you find yourself as a political party, you always have an antidote to some of the policies and programs and achievements that have been propagated by the other. So I just
Well, we've been joined by the president for Imani Africa, founder and president, Imani Africa. President in his own right, Franklin Cudjoe, has had a lot to say about assessment of government, and Imani Africa has been doing that over the years. And just by the close of the evening of yesterday, I got a queue on my WhatsApp platform as well, and straight away I had to go to his Facebook page, and the links were there. Now, let me ask you, Mr. Cudjoe, if you look at the analysis and then the observations that had been made by Imani Africa for the NDC and then the MPP, it presupposes that the discussions about infrastructure become important at the end of the day. How do we juxtapose that with the way we tend to make light that conversation, taking a cue from what transpired in 2016?
Sorry, the last part of your question wasn't clear. How do we do what? Sorry?
How do we water down? 2016, the NDC was proposing or selling the message of infrastructure to the voter population. The MPP at the time said it was not a big deal. Every government implements infrastructure development or projects. Now we know that the comparison is now being made from yesterday that this is a like for like. The better alternative is us. How do we then bring the issue to the center, knowing that apparently it is important after all?
Well, good morning to you and your producer. Good morning to my good friends on the show as well, respectable PhD holders, Nansatha and Mohammed. Look, it's an important conversation to have, and I think that the NPP have done themselves some good by now bringing the conversation to the level where the Vice President has had to speak specifically to the issues on infrastructure. You see, when they did the accounting to the people, I think the town hall meeting in Kumasi last year, we were quick to say that they undershot themselves in terms of the infrastructure achievements they have made. They counted just about 5 major projects. We counted 22. And we retained a value which was obviously based on our own metrics. These metrics, by the way, had been used for the NDC, so nobody can quarrel with it in terms of whether it's been fair or not. And we returned a value of almost 46.44%. So I'm happy that they've now woken up to the realization that it's becoming an important conversation to have, solely because the NDC has made a meal out of the whole political conversation. And I think it's to their credit. Indeed, they have shepherded this conversation, and the MPP is now following. So anybody who thinks that you can discount the infrastructure conversation, well, there you have it. But I understand when Dr. is it Mohammed?
Ali Seidu.
Yes, Seidu. Sorry, Seidu. I was giving you another name. When Seidu, and sorry, Nansatha, I didn't listen to you, so I was on a call with. So that's the only reason I don't know what you said. But I trust your judgment. Always, Nansatha is a rare breed. As Dr. Seidu was saying, that at the end of the day, the impact of infrastructure must be felt by the people. So somehow the economy must reflect in the people's livelihoods as well. But it is also very useful that the conversation has now pivoted around the issues of value for money, which is another introduction for the debate on infrastructure. And I dare submit it should actually be the basis for every manifesto promise, because the point really is that after making all these promises, the next question somebody will ask is, apart from value for money, what exactly are you getting money for in order to prosecute this agenda, right? Because the NDC can come back and say, well, you're welcome to the debate, but I used maybe 50-something billion to prosecute this agenda, which looks as if I did a bit better per the Imani scale, because we did 51.3% in infrastructure from 2012 to 2015. But you had the same period of 2016 to 2019, and while you are doing 44.6%, but you borrowed more. In fact, you borrowed probably 3 times, or a little under 3 times more. So we can begin to have those conversations. But I suspect that the value for money conversation is very useful. And I like Bawumia's analogy of the circle interchange as against the Pokwasi. I live in Pokwasi, so I can speak to that matter. I think it's fair to make comparisons, but I must also submit that constructing a roundabout in the central business district of Accra, where it was very difficult to navigate, the engineering is definitely different from the engineering in Pokwasi here. I mean, in Pokwasi, where I live here, I live closer to the interchange. There isn't much in terms of businesses and milling of people. There's not so much infrastructure around. So yes, you can understand, but it's a very important conversation to have. And I'm sure the NDC can come back and say, well, you bring on the issue of value for money, but the EC shouldn't have done what they did and returned us to square one and wasted $120 million. Or Kearney GBGs, $89 million for no value return. Or Unipass, which is wasting everybody's time at the port for no value return and a lot of money. So these are identical twins, by the way. And I suspect that these conversations are very useful. But I want to have a conversation about where are you getting the money from? And beyond that, also, how do we maintain these infrastructure investment that we make? I would think it is important to look at the issue of private partnerships as well. Because truth be told, look at UGMC. It was a perfect private public partnership approach, right? Which means that somehow, but for the controversy that dogged it, clearly speaking, these are investments that are likely to be recouped and managed properly because there's a private sector element of it. I'm not saying private people are saints, but you see, when you borrow commercially and you invest in infrastructure, it's important. Even if you borrow concessionally, as most government would like to borrow to undertake infrastructure projects, you still need to instill the element in you, the element of what's called sustainability, and management is critical. But I think, apart from value for money, where is the money coming from? Because it's crucial.
Now, Dr. Yakubu, the issue about communicating the messages and then trying to be on top of what the conversation should be for an electioneering like ours. What other variables tend to dilute it, knowing that now the two parties have put the conversation of infrastructure in the middle? What other variables influence the minds of the voter beyond just the main conversation of infrastructure?
Okay, so the issues include the ability of the candidates or that particular political party to listen. You know, when you give feedback on an issue, you state the cause of calling it a government fair, like a results fair, right? So you need to have the ability to listen back from the people that you have given this communication to as to what the issues are on the ground. As I already indicated, the barometer to measure the records lies with the electorate. And we're already hearing people saying, I live here, I have seen this is what is wrong with it, this is not what is wrong with it. I live here, I have not seen it, I don't know this is going on. So we have that. So you should be able to listen to that. The other issue is that perception is always fundamental to every campaign. You know, our voter population, if you take our demography of how we vote, the reasons for voting are as diverse as they come. Whereas in other countries, you can even measure and run models and get results way ahead and measure people's popularity and all that. Here, those scientific tools, they come into a big normative frame that we struggle, you know, every day to achieve. So perception, you know, and perception can be negative or positive. You know, that helps you to be able to get to, and the issue of the cancel culture that I said, because if you treat a particular issue with disdain or as unimportant, and you are coming back to the conversation, you should be able to raise different aspects of that discussion so that we are invested to go along with you. It shouldn't just be, yes, here is the infrastructure. No, raise other issues, then we can go along with you so that your actors don't also distract from the messaging. Sometimes we forget that when you hype expectations, then you have put yourself in a place where the barometer to also measure you is quite high. If nobody is the gold standard and you want to be the new gold standard, then you have put yourself in a place where we will come with different tools to also come and look at you. So your messaging for the people who will communicate back from your party is also critical. We don't need Dr. Bawumia to do the town hall meeting, and then when it comes to the discussions, which of course he will not be in a position to hold, but they have a machinery that will do. Then we are hearing, different things and some different kind of arguments. We need them to stay the course of what has been put out there and how this benefits Ghana and how this also propagates the message that they want to put forward, because it is fundamental to the campaign. Having said that, you should realize that the strategy of doing political comms at this level means that you have also looked at the demography of the voting population. Don't forget that we always have, we the old bones who are quite set in our ways. Some people have made up their minds long ago how they are going to. They are not even listening to anything. You have those ones. Then you also have those that, obey the wind, wherever it is. Some people even actually make up their mind on the day they go to do the ballot. Then you have those who are quite interested, in the discussions to help them make up their mind. Then you have the millennials, and then you have Generation Z. So there are different people and how you have to come up then with different messages. A town hall meeting, as we said, of this level, is at a strategic level where you get leverage in media to carry, but you can't depend on your party influencers to do the discussions and end up with very positive outcomes. So they will need to strategize in a way that they keep the momentum of what has been communicated, and then have a very clear and simple messaging on why infrastructure is core, to their campaigning this particular season. That is very important. And we don't want humor. This times nobody's laughing. They are very interesting times. So nobody is in a mood to laugh. So we don't want anybody to come and treat it, oh yes, we have brought infrastructure. If you don't like it, you can do. No, we don't want that. And we don't want the work to be given to us. The onus rests on them to be able to prove to us. It is not only us. So once they are proving, then we also bring the validations or otherwise attestation, contestations from the base to meet them. We don't want them to say we have given it to you. So you go out there and you find out whether it's true or not. We know that that can happen because we all live in communities and we can see or not see what is going on. But we want them to also be able to argue out their points and prove that indeed this is what has been achieved, and it is quite important and critical to the campaign. So those are some of the variables that are emerging from this conversation.
And it's still about politics. I'm sure we can go on with this conversation further. But the three of you, great conversation so far, great input. And I wish you the best of the day, my brothers and sisters as well.
Thank you very much.
All right. Oh, thank you, Franklin. Okay. Dr. Saidu, thank you as well. But it's still the related conversations about politics. This time we decided to go to the Chuck Norris of the Ewutu Senya East constituency. She is the parliamentary candidate-elect for the NDC on December 7th. It's her picture that will be representing the NDC on the ballot paper. But we also do know that it's a bigger fight. And her main contestant is Hawa Koomson. And we're talking about the battle for Ewutu Senya East constituency seats.
The accolades, they would come. It is
because I'm thinking you're two Iron ladies. So who will be the winner at the end of the day?
No, but officially, it's been declared she's Rambo and I'm Chuck Norris.
Okay, so you are Rambo and she's Chuck Norris.
I can't be Rambo. She's Rambo. I'm Chuck Norris.
Okay, so you are
Rambo
Chuck Norris.
A bad person, yes.
And then and she's
Rambo.
She's Rambo, yes. And you are
Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris. Yes. It's now become a full fight, but just, you know, on the light-hearted political terrain. But for the full conversation, we're taking a break. When we come back, we have a great conversation with Naa Koryoo Okunor, the parliamentary candidate-elect for the NDC for the Ewutu Senya East constituency. Do stay with us.
Okay, so Naa Koryoo, it's a young lady who has the constituency at heart, and it's a lady who wants to make Kasoa proud. There are a lot of things that has gone on within Kasoa and its environs within 8 years, and the people of Kasoa are crying and yelling for a change. So Naa Koryoo Okunor, it's here to give Kasoa that change. And when we talk of change, it's not just any change, because there could be changes that are negative and positive. This change we're talking of is a positive change. Service to mankind, service to humanity, and service to the constituency.
Now, there are many areas, and if you can just walk me through, there are many areas that we've been able to just do the wrecking before coming to you for this interaction. I would say that it looks to be a mixed bag of a community, very peri-urban, new areas, but also many people who are inhabiting the constituency who also would need a lot of help. But we do know that you don't think that the current MP is doing so well. What do you think that your constituents need?
Okay, so as you said earlier, Kasoa is more of a cosmopolitan constituency where we have all the tribes, all the kinds of life, from the high level to the middle class to the elite. Everybody is in Kasoa here. So to deal with the people of Kasoa, it's not difficult, but it's dicey. You need to be very tactical to be able to reach out to all the groups. And Kasoa over the years has been static, with the exception of the development that was done under the able leadership of the next president of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama. You know, we didn't, after the division, we didn't have an MP, but we had an MC. So most of the projects or most of the development in the constituency was done under John Dramani Mahama. We can talk of very good roads. We can talk of our schools, the only day senior high school at the Oduponpe Heje River. We can talk of the assembly building. We can talk of the GS office. We can talk of the number of chip compounds we have in the constituency. We can talk of the jobs. The jobs that even these roads that were constructed have created. If you're just looking behind me, you will see the number of people that have erected their shops and their tables to sell. It was as a result of these roads that have been constructed. So a lot of things have happened over the 8 years in the constituency, but all these things happened under the able leadership of John Dramani Mahama, that's the next president of the Republic of Ghana. Aside that, we cannot go out and pinpoint of any other development, any initiative that has gone on within the constituency. The MP now, Hawa Koomson, she's been the MP for 8 years, and to say the least, nothing. There hasn't been any development in the constituency at all. There hasn't been any change. There hasn't been any upliftment. The people within the constituency are looking for someone who can bring change. They need jobs. They need good infrastructures. Our sanitation and health problem is an issue. Above all, security. Normally, when I say security, I don't really want to talk about the security as to those in uniform, uniformed men. But when you say security, we have to link it to jobs. We have to link it to infrastructure. And if you have good jobs, for the youth, especially if our women go to the market and they are not beaten, they are safe, they can go to the market, display their wares and get it sold. We have a good hospital, we have a good sanitation system. It all boils back to security. And our security men, to trust me, it's not too good. They are managing the situation under this leadership, under the NPP leadership. It hasn't been so good. Some will say we are at the management stage, but this time I think the opportunity has come that the people of Kasoa have seen the lights. They know what water is and they know what alcohol is. They've been able to weigh both. And they are telling the good people of Ghana, the good people of Ewutu Senya East constituency and its environment that they need a change that would bring a positive impact into the lives of everybody living in the constituency.
Yeah. I do know that you became quite famous or infamous, it depends on how you want to do the description, because of the disturbances that were recorded at that registration center when we had the phases of the registration ongoing for the newly compiled one. But somebody will say that you stood up to a certain situation, and the minister, who is also the member of parliament, and it is because people think, based on my interaction, you're a very strong woman. But it's not only because of your strength, is it? What do you think that you bring to the table for which you would want to become the appealing point for the voters?
You know, leadership is quite dicey. Everybody and how they play their leadership roles. I'm someone who listens a lot. I'm down to earth. I go anywhere. I do what I think it suits the people at that particular time. So the people have me at heart. I am part of them. I am not just one of them, but I am part of them. I've been part of the family of Ewutu Senya East constituency. And I wouldn't say I am God, that I can solve all the problems, but at least I can meet them halfway through the journey, then we can solve the problem together. Although there were some situations during the registration exercise, well, it happened for a reason. There have been gunshots, and that wasn't the first incident reported. We've had incidents which we reported to the police from the first day of the registration to until the incident occurred. I think after the incident, things came to normal a bit. Everything that happens is for a good reason. That's what I'll say. I'm not just a strong person, but it is what Naa Koryoo is bringing on board. That's why I always say that it's as two women contesting the seat. It is not how tall one is, how short one is, how one thinks she's more prettier than the other. But let's discuss as mature women, not gun shooting. Let's discuss as intelligent women, not bullying the other party. And let's discuss our policies, what one is bringing on board, what you have been able to do for the constituency, what you have been able to achieve. I am not an MP. I've never been an MP for the Ewutu Senya East constituency. I am now coming in to serve the people. You have been an MP. So let me know what you have done over the 8 years. Then let me bring on what John Dramani Mahama, the next president of the Republic of Ghana, has also done for the 8 years, for the period of 8 years. Let us share these ideas. Let us put it on the table. Let the people of Ewutu Senya East constituency decide on what is good for them. I think as women, that is what we should be looking at, and not the Rambo style of politicking in Kaswa now.
But if we have to talk about the things that need to be done, I asked a couple of people before we started this interaction, and you were called the Iron Lady. Is that a name that was given to you? Because I do know that Hawa too is called Iron Lady, and you also call Iron Lady. So we have Iron Lady Square trying to rub it off, contest for the seat. That's a tough one. How do you take some of these accolades into your stride?
I'm laughing because this is the first time I'm hearing Iron Lady. I've never heard it that I'm called Iron Lady, and I don't know if Hawa is also called Iron Lady though. But then for the accolades, they would come. Because
I'm thinking you're two Iron Ladies. So who will be the winner at the end of the day?
No, but you know, officially it's been declared she's Rambo and I'm Chuck Norris.
Okay, so you are Rambo and she is Chuck Norris.
I can't be Rambo. She's Rambo. I'm Chuck Norris.
Okay, so you are
Rambo
Chuck Norris,
a bad person, yes.
And then and she's Rambo. She's Rambo, yes. And you are
Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris.
Yes.
Well, all of you are winners at the end of the day. Blowman and Killer. So they are in the movies. They're all the winners at the end of the day. They defeat the enemy.
No, you know, with Rambo is always out to do the bad. He's always out to do the crooked. But with Chuck Norris sits down, takes tactical strategies to maneuver its way to get the heart desires of the people, and that's the right. But with Rambo, it just displays its ignorance anywhere it goes.
Buga buga.
Buga buga. That's the right word.
But look, we do know that if you take a look at the constituency, you find those who are traders, retailers, etc. And then there are areas that you find very plush houses, etc. So it's a mixed bag. We've already talked about what the demographics are. But if you want to serve them for your campaigning, for you, if you were to be elected, what will be the 5 key pointers for you to be the main focus communicative areas?
Okay. 7 December is, per my calendar, is just 2.5 months away. Per my calendar, not per the national calendar. Per my calendar, just 2.5 months away. And
that's how you've pegged your campaign timelines?
Exactly.
Great.
So we are doing our best to see how we can run the campaign up. That's what we are doing at the moment. But what I think the 5 key areas or the pointers that normally when I go out, the message I give across is, one, I'm looking at jobs. In the constituency, there are no jobs. When I say jobs, I'm looking at both the youth and our women. I'm a woman, so I tend to focus more on women. And you know, when we say Kaswa, the name Kaswa generated out of the name market. And you know, with our market, the number of people that patronize the markets more are the women. So I'll focus more on the women and the youth. There are lots of youth also in Kaswa, and I fall between the women and the youth. So it's quite disturbing that we have a lot of youth in the constituency who have, so to say, nothing to do. Most of the youth in the constituency are also the breadwinners of their homes, and most of them have lost their jobs as a result of this men's gold and all these micro finance and all those things, the closure of these banks and all that. So a lot of them are home. Sometimes you can imagine someone who earns about 3,000 a month, and at the end of the day is now driving a taxi, who is earning just about 250 Ghana a month, or someone who is earning 5,000 a month and is forced to join NAPCO because he lost his job or her job at the bank and is earning 700. So these are some of the things that are the concerns of the youth. One, now someone is also working in Accra. There's no job in Kaswa. There's no viable job. I wouldn't say jobs, like viable jobs in Kaswa for the people of Kaswa to do. So at the end of the day, at the end of the month, you realize that all your salaries are going into fuel or transportation. Those who don't have cars, they pay for the transport fares and all that. How much money do you have to feed your family? So we are looking at viable jobs. When I say viable jobs, are not just white-collar jobs. There are other jobs that the youth can engage themselves into that is more lucrative, that they can also use to feed their families. So then when we look at the women in the constituency are my priority. We have a lot of women in Kaswa within the Otu Senya East constituency. Most of them are market women. Now, these market women have sheds, they have shops at the market, they have stalls. And at the end of the day, you pay so much money for these shops. You go to the place and then you hear it's been given to someone else because probably the person has paid more than you have paid. That is quite worrying. Somewhere last year, most of our women, our mothers, were beaten at the markets that was built under John Dramani Mahama, because he saw the need for these markets to be well structured and expanded. So he managed to put up these 2 markets, as the old and the new markets. Now, these women were beaten because, well, they tried to occupy the stalls that they had paid for and had been given to someone else. So these are some of the woes of the women that we have in Kaswa. So when we have open jobs in the constituency, I'm sure that the youth and our mothers will all get something to feed their families. Now, we also talk about sanitation and health. Initially, when you move around or when you hear of Kaswa in the news, it is about one developmental issue or the other, one inauguration of this or the other. But since this government came in power, all what we hear in the news is one gunshot or one baller, one corner. That is what the people say. That is what they tell me. That is not my word. That's what they tell me. One corner, one baller. The sanitation in Kaswa now is so appalling. Even I'm sure when you were driving through Kaswa, you would have seen some of the garbages, heaped up cabbages on the pavements and all that. So we need a better management system to help us with our sanitation problem in the constituency. I know sanitation has to do with human behavior.
You do have a municipality.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We need a better management system because the municipality is under the NPP government. The MC, they are being elected by their government. So when we get a better management system from their end, if they are able to pick up a better management, all these things, because under the NDC, that was Honorable Adams Nuhu, there were no sanitation issues in the constituency, although he was also the MC. So he made sure that all these things were well attended to. Now, we are looking at our health system in the constituency. And this is where I always bring out the points that a little girl walked to me some time ago crying. So I tend to ask her what the reason were. And she said the mother just passed. And I was quiet. So, as I narrate the story, this woman lives at Akweli. She was in labor. She had to come to the Kaswa Polyclinic just under the overhead. When she got there, there were no infrastructures or talk of facilities.
You mean health facilities?
Health facilities at that polyclinic. That place is very small. So she was referred to Winneba. Now, we are looking at the distance from Kaswa to Winneba.
Oh, you mean that when the person got to the polyclinic or that health facility, they didn't have enough equipment or the yes, things to be able to take care of
her at that point. So she was referred to Winneba. Now, we are looking at the traffic from Kaswa to Winneba, taking into consideration the traffic at Bujumburam. As soon as she got to the entrance of the Winneba hospital, the woman had passed. So the point is, what happened if we had something in Kaswa that the woman would have just been referred to within 10 or 5 minutes, she could have been treated? What happened to the CP Polyclinic? That's where we are now. What happened? If it wasn't for the noise that we had made last year, the push and the distress calls that we made, this thing wouldn't even have been operationalized. Now, it is not even fully operationalized. It is just being managed for now.
Because I've been inside, I see that it's only being partially operated.
Exactly.
Very empty halls and places that could have been used for OPDs, etc.
Exactly. And this thing was completed way back, even before.
Is it part of the extended project itself? Or
Actually, it is. And even the road that we are standing on is part of that project. So you see, if we had this hospital operationalized then, or fully operationalized, I'm sure that woman's life could have been saved. That man who lost the husband, who lost the wife, wouldn't have been bereaved. That child wouldn't also lose the mother. So these are some of the things that we also have to look at as a constituency.
And these are some of the things that you want to say on the campaign trail.
Exactly.
Well, we know that you take us to another point in the constituency, and then we'll also get to ask some critical questions, because one of the focus areas is also
to save and rescue the good people of Ewutu East constituency from this clueless government. About the interchange, we are standing right on the Kaswa interchange, what we call the Kaswa Dubai. This was constructed under the able leadership of the next president of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama. Initially, when you are coming from Accra to Kaswa, as soon as you get to the toll booths, from the toll booths to get to this junction, the overhead, you'll spend nothing less than 4 hours. Nothing less than 4 hours before you can get to Kaswa, because the road was narrow. But now we have this interchange where after you cross the toll booth, you use just 5 minutes to get to Kaswa. Then we, the women, pregnant women, nursing mothers and all that, when we are coming, because of the traffic situation, sitting in the car for long hours, we will arrive at the destination where we've been having swollen feet and all that. And at the end of the day, you go to the hospital, especially with pregnant women, and you'll be told you have complications. But now this is a situation whereby you just do this journey within 5 minutes. you go home and you're able to prepare dinner for your husbands. So this as well, these are one of the benefits that we've gotten from this road interchange. And not just this, the president, that's the next president of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, taught it twice that we living in Kaswa, Winneba, and those areas wouldn't have to go through Achimota, Awoshi, all the way to join the Insawam Road to go to, that's what Kumasi. So they constructed the 24-kilometer road from Kaswa Obom Junction all the way to Amasaman, and that is also a plus. When I'm talking of roads, I'm talking of the Pink FM 94 roads. I'm talking of the New Town Road, the road that links Iron City to Kaswa. Initially, when you are coming from Iron City is just here. You have to get to Kaswa and take another car back through Kaswa to Iron City.
We haven't seen your face throughout. I'm wearing a mask, so at least you can have the benefit of getting the cameras and your constituents also see you. So that's how you look like.
Yeah, sure.
Very beautiful.
Thank you.
Apart from being intelligent.
Thank you.
So that is Naa Koryoo Okunor, and she is the parliamentary candidate-elect for the NDC. She is contesting the Member of Parliament of the area, Hawa Koomson, who also is a Minister of State. And again, I have to reiterate, it is that very incident that got her onto the limelight, that incident at that registration center when we had the registration ongoing, that brought the name out big. Naa Koryoo, Iron Lady, indefatigable, she says. She is the Chuck Norris of the Ewutu Senya East constituency. But it's why we have to leave you. We have to go back to the studio.